Pendo and GitLab audience. You won't get live. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I think what you like if we can measure like half of the people, we can already make the product a lot better. It's just that for us, like the up-tiering of people could be a huge win. Like 90% is now using a free version of that or not a subscriber. So the more people we can up-tier and
we're
customer.
We're live.
We're live on YouTube now.
Okay, so when
Well, so do we want to kick off the other conversation that you were thinking about, which is sort of just a conversation? We have two founders of Pendo, Erik, and GitLab, Sid, and I think we're just going to have sort of a founders conversation about what it's like to, and actually we're at similar stages in terms of size and growth and all those types of things. So I don't know if you had any more kind of kickoff thoughts around that. No.
I love this. I would love to hear
to the world.
Let's
live stream. And then it's like,
you decide to build your organization totally decentralized, right? You say we're same age, kind of the same position. Big difference is you have people everywhere, no central office. And Pendo has exactly the opposite model. We have centralized offices. I have 2/3 of my people in one office building, right, on 2 floors. What's it been like? What led you to the decision to build it that way rather than a more traditional way?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was in the Netherlands. My co-founder was in the Ukraine, and our first team member that we hired was in Serbia. So it was just natural to work like that. And then we hired a few people in the Netherlands. He came to my house, had an extra desk, but like he didn't have to come in order to kind of do that job. So they kind of opted to stay at home and stay to commute. And then after we graduated from Y Combinator, they told us like this works for engineering, but not for anything else. So we got an office on 8th and Howard, and we put in 9 desks. And the same thing happened. People came in for a couple of days, and then guess what? They needed to do their job. Everyone was reachable on Slack. We were on Zoom calls. And they stopped coming to the office because by commute, it's not needed. So, and because I think people don't come to the office because they like to work from an office necessarily, but they don't want to miss out on career opportunities. They want to hear what's going on in the company. They want the information. They want to be involved in decisions. So as long as you can offer those things, and also offer the social aspect, it's not necessary to have an office. But some things that happen organically at an office, you have to be intentional about if you run a remote company. For example, if we're fundraising, like normally you come back from an investor meeting to the office and people are, oh, Sid, how do you go? Oh, no, oh, okay. Instead, we have a Slack channel where we get people posted, like play by play. And you want to hang out with a group of people every day. So again, when we organize that, we call it a card call, and you switch up the groups a bit every now and then, but 4 times a week, you get together with a group if you want and talk a bit about what's going on outside of work.
But you do that online?
We do that online.
On Zoom.
Wow.
You want to hear what's going on in the company, so we have 5 minutes of announcement every 4 times a week. You want to hear what other departments are doing. So 4 times a week, we have 25 minutes where they take questions. So they prepare mostly a slide deck, sometimes a video, and we have 25 minutes of Q&A.
Every day?
4 times a week.
Wow. So that's a lot of time to spend on internal communication. It sounds like you're really deliberate about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, but it's all opt-in. So I think participation rates is about 20% or something. So I think most people do attend, but very few people attend every single day.
Do you track that at all so you know you're reaching people?
We know how many people are in the call live, and then we can see how many times the video is viewed on YouTube later on.
How do you so? What do you? Your company?
Every given day, it's like 150-ish.
Yeah.
Out of 500.
Okay.
And so my guess is it's not, but I'm sure there's some core that goes every day, but then it's sort of check-in, you know?
I found it invaluable for onboarding, just getting that sense of other departments and who's doing things and faces. Like I was into the group conversation, the team call every single morning for like 2 or 3 months straight. And then eventually I realized like, oh, I can focus on something else this day. Or I already know what they're doing, I can skip that group conversation and do something else, but super valuable for onboarding. Like, because it takes the place of an office environment where you're just marinating the culture. You're overhearing stuff, and I say sometimes like, nothing's ever overheard at GitLab, right? It's like you, information is pushed to you or you ask questions, and that's it. But this is a good way to kind of do some broadcast.
And so what else do you do for corporate culture to make that work? Our culture is very much about, we get together, we hang out, and these people seeing each other every day. We talk about our culture, but our culture is from, you spend time with people in the same culture, and we kind of see it to the organization.
So there's a couple of things. First of all, you also want the hanging out. So we call them coffee chats. It's like 25 minutes without an agenda. We also encourage people to meet up. So we have local meetups, but we also have a travel stipend where you can go visit other team members and we'll pay for part of your travel. And we get together with the whole company every 9 months. So
thanks. Every 9 months.
Yeah.
That's an interesting cadence.
Yeah. Well, we find that it works for us.
6 months is too often, and a year's not enough.
We always did it for 9 months. And after 7 months, everyone's anxious to go to the next one. So
where is the next one?
New Orleans. And then we've been to Crete, we've been to South Africa, to Cape Town.
Wow.
So interesting locations. We do a couple of days of excursions and a couple of days of unconference.
So it's a full week?
Almost a complete full week. People need lots of travel time to come there from everywhere.
As we get bigger, it's harder to hit like the 9-month cadence. So now we're planning a 1,000-person event now. So it's like, okay, where can you have a 1,000-person event on your time scales at a price that's reasonable? So it'll be interesting to see kind of like the next one is like the big test is how can we lock that down as soon as possible, within that roughly 9 months.
Yes, we're smaller, so we do an annual meeting and it's 275 people. We have people who work 2/3 in Raleigh, North Carolina, but we have people in Asia, in Tel Aviv, and in London, and in California, and then a couple randoms.
Yeah.
But even organizing 275 for us is you have to start sharpening your pencil on the numbers and the rooms. Do you guys share rooms at this event?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so we shared rooms. That was a whole conversation about sharing rooms because a lot of folks don't really travel. And so,
and you can opt out for medical reasons, so you can pay some. At some point, so we have to control costs.
Yeah,
in order to do this in the future.
You've grown through acquisition
a little bit.
And so, how do you keep your culture out of the new offices that spawn from? Like, was a California office acquisition, or was that?
No, that was higher.
The Tel Aviv one.
The Tel Aviv was acquisition.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of the things that you talked about isn't that different when you do that. It's all for us. It's face-to-face time. And when we did the Tel Aviv acquisition, we were about a 90%, it's an 80 or 90% company we acquired, which is 25 or 30, so it's a big bite. And everybody we talked to about it said, don't try and substitute Zoom and Slack for face-to-face, right? And they're great tools. You can be on Zoom a lot. We had Zoom rooms set up, and when we closed the deal, the first thing we did was we went, wait, install Zoom rooms. And the management, we don't need Zoom rooms. We just use our laptops, and 3 weeks later, they're like, oh, we had to have those because the big screen. But I travel to Israel 4 times a year now, and my CEO travels to Israel 4 times a year, and we try and make sure that when they have executives, they're on a monthly cadence, so you can ask questions, you can be face-to-face, and you can talk about things. And we're also very deliberate about our corporate values. I don't know how much you guys talk about your values. And so we have them on walls, and we put them on walls in the new office. So we have to, and in Raleigh, you can actually find them in English and in Hebrew. Both. So when folks from Israel come to visit, they're seeing that we're thinking about Israel every day. Yeah. Right. So, and when we go there, we make sure the colors are the same. We also make sure the values are the same. They participate in the same kind of value award. We have an award system for awarding based on people who embody values. And we're very deliberate to make sure that they're included in all that. We do the company all hands to bring everybody in.
Yeah.
And honestly, when we did the one in 2018, we didn't do a great job of it. Like it wasn't great. And a lot of people were like, why are we doing this? So we did one in 2019, all you hear is complaining, right? This, why are we having to do it? We didn't like the one last year. And the team that played it this year knocked the socks off everybody. It was great to the point that after the day, folks were like, hey, when can we do it again? Cool. All right, we don't do one. Can we do this again? We need all the engineers together in 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is really, really expensive. So no, we can't.
Yeah, that's the typical thing, like, oh yeah, we just need to get this group together. Like, yeah, but that means it's either or, like we cannot do both. And that means, so we're trying to encourage a bit that there's one day where people get together in their functional group and the other part they don't. And
we did our first day of all engineering meetings, and I didn't invite product. And we are product and engineering or Pendo are like, we sit together, we work together. My closest exec is my product guy. But when I just said we're gonna have one day and it's just engineering, and it was all about building engineering culture across the offices. And we just sat and gave presentations to each other about what we were working on.
So we also try to reinforce our values, and we have 10 ways in which we do that. Because we think whatever behavior you reward becomes your value.
Absolutely.
So, of course, it's what the leadership does. Is we select for it during hiring. We explicitly rate people according to our values. We emphasize it during onboarding. We do it during 360 feedback sessions every year. We complement it. So we have a thank you channel, and we got like more than 3,000 people. At times, people were mentioned, over 90% of the company was mentioned at least once. And we emoji our values on those.
We did that as well.
We just give discretionary bonuses about referring to our values. So I think today 3 were given in a public call with the company invited. It's part of the annual compensation review. It's part of every promotional document. One of the most important parts of that. What we use for underperformance and not letting people go, although we can be public about that and with the rest of the company. So I think it's really important that every significant event that the company values come back, so that people are aware, okay, this is the behavior that's rewarded.
We'd open every one of our all hands meetings with a slide below every value listed. For the same kind of reason. What is your most important value?
Results. And thanks to Eric, who made a hierarchy of our values. We have 6 values, and I thought it was kind of cool that you made a hierarchy.
Pyramid.
It was, yeah, back in my head.
What if there were 7? You would be like, oh,
I know, right? Sid, we got to delete core value.
we have 7, so it's
there's a 7-pointed star. It's basically like results at the top. Well, actually, I should say the impetus came from this is that I've seen and experienced core values colliding at different companies. Like, what do we do here? One value says do this, the other one does that. So I want to kind of break those ties. So we put results at the top. That was an easy one. And then the middle part of the pyramid is iteration and transparency. And to me, those are the 2 out of 6 that really make GitLab unique as a company. We are so iterative about stuff. We're iterative about marketing. As much as a product market fit thing, it's like everything we take the smallest possible volume. You should
about live streaming.
Live streaming,
clearly.
And so Sid told me when I introduced, he goes, this core value will push you to iteration. I've read the polygram essays, like everybody knows you iterate. And he was right, like we're hyper iterative. And so that's why I put that on the second row because it's like, it's lower than results. So if iteration doesn't get results, we won't do it, but we do iteration by default because we're so confident it leads to results. And then transparency is that other one, or transparent by default. It's really hard to be as transparent as we are. That's the other one that pushes us, but we're not radically transparent. We do things that would take the company down, but we're merely extremely transparent about stuff.
We share that one. We use the same word. In fact.
Yeah, and that's a great one. And the interesting thing about that one too is that you hear it and you think, oh, well, don't keep secrets. Like, well, no one wants to keep secrets. That's actually fairly rare. The failure mode for us sometimes is just keeping things up to date. Like we have the handbook. The handbook is out of date. That's not transparent. It's actually sort of a breach of the values. And so that's another thing. We do it by default because we trust it leads to results. And then diversity and collaboration and efficiency are sort of the bottom of the pyramid. So that's how we sort of break ties. So, like, what do we do here? Well, like we've got a serious security vulnerability or something like that. Well, transparency says we go public with it right now. And it's like, no, that would yield a company result. So we're going to
It's bad for our customers.
We're going to be, yeah, exactly. We're going to be non-transparent about this. But the compromise with transparency is that once that's mitigated, we communicate that, and now we're eventually transparent. We're not immediately transparent. Those sorts of things. So
Responsibly transparent.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, transparency is one of my favorites at Pendo because I haven't worked in an organization that's as hyper transparent as we are, to the point that we do. People complain sometimes, like, you're doing our board deck again, and we take our board deck in front of the whole company. Like, that's the same as the quarterly update we just got. It's like, oh, no, you want to see the board deck? Like, literally, it's 80% of the same slides. Please stop.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun for me when I sit in a seat, with my CEO and my CMO and whoever else, and we have to make a decision, and someone says, guys, transparency. Okay, got it. Right, because it just does drive decision making. And I've how big were you when you put core values into place?
It was 15 or 16. Yeah, so it was like 10, 15 people. But it took a while to kind of distill them down. We had 13 core values earlier, and like people could recite like.
So you're 50 or 60 people?
15.
15. So when did they become important to your business?
Yeah, at that time, 70 people or something like that.
I asked that because my CEO is really big into this stuff. When the first week we were together, we did core values. Like, this is a waste of time. We got 5 people. Let's get to work, right? And we did them, and we kind of parked them for 2.5 years. And when we got to 30 or 40 people, we really brought them back. But I think there's an inflection point with that startup where when you're 10 people in a room or a virtual room, you're aligned. Like, you trust each other and you're aligned and you know where you're going. But there's some point where there's 50 or 70, you need to be a lot more deliberate about it.
I think the culture is much stronger today than it was when we were. Well, the values are much clearer today than we were, and people like. You could have asked those people what are our values and get like no overlap in answers. So
but nobody
have a strong culture, but you don't really have strong values. Like, it's not clear where that overlap is.
Because you didn't need the values to drive culture across 500 people.
Yeah, I do agree. It's more important if you get bigger, but I also think there's something where I think in hindsight, I would have done it earlier and started reinforcing it early, because there's people from those early days that clearly weren't a values fit, but we were not able to detect that.
I totally agree. If we waited, we did it. We emphasized them because of problems we were facing, and we used them as a way to fix the problems.
Oh, that's not what.
Well, we brought them back because we didn't have the culture. We were going a little out of control. We weren't having, and we said, well, we had values. Are we living up to the values? We said, no, we're not. Let's live up to the values, and things got better. Like, it helped the culture, and we had done it earlier. It would have just been a smooth ride.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad we had them there. We went back to them, but if I did it again, I would start earlier. I would think about hiring to those values earlier.
Yeah. Because it's kind of weird if you define them afterwards. Like, you already hired everyone. Like, now people can opt in. They know ahead of time what they're signing up.
Yeah, we defined them when we were really small. We didn't need them, right? It wasn't the most important thing on our plate. Because when you're small, you don't know who's big, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that you can incur a bit of culture debt, because like you gotta incur some debt in all kinds of departments, because the biggest odds are you're not going to be successful anyway. So why do all that work on fun? That's the thing, as long as possible.
Yeah,
it's rational.
Yeah, it is rational. It's just it's fun talking to founders and hearing when that became important. I think especially engineering founders, because that's soft stuff we can kind of not writing code.
Yeah.
It's all about actually getting the product built.
At some point, your job switches from writing code to programming the organization.
It does. I like that word. I haven't heard it phrased that way before.
So I'm very proud of, like, I make a lot of commits every day on our handbook, and I think that's it's even more fun than code, because if I make spelling mistakes, I don't get a syntax error, and other people fix them for me. So, and humans are way more more diverse and interesting than a machine. So, but it's not that there's all kinds of automation walking around in GitLab. They're humans, but it's amazing how much leverage writing things down can do.
clear communication. It's a much more complicated system you're optimizing than just code. So you change your handbook constantly.
Yeah.
How do people keep up with the changes?
Not to, like, there's a change log, but if something is important, they tend to get communicated like in the general Slack channel, or that and a company update, or that and an email, or just remind people like, when, hey, this is what we actually do. So it's far from perfect, but it's a lot better than not writing it down.
When's the last change? So what was the last change you made to the handbook? Remember?
I can have a look.
You keep it in Git, right?
Yeah.
You merged something that I started this morning about actually the video, try to keep your video on at all times.
Yes,
So
I merged that, yeah. So we merged that. The expectation in GitLab is you keep your video on, because we saw people turning video on, but for us, like, that is our meeting room. So it's like someone walks into the office to collect a motorcycle helmet. Like, it's super weird. You're gonna, so we want to set that expectation.
You keep it on all the time during meetings, or even when you're not in a meeting?
During meetings.
Okay. So you don't have a general GitLab
No.
channel, everybody in it all the time for video?
No.
It's like someone's in a meeting, but maybe they just came back from a run. I'll keep my video off, they feel gross. It's like, that's actually totally okay. We're a very intentional company. So we're just encouraging people that like our threshold is low for this stuff, and the engagement is worth it. But use your best judgment. If if I don't know, if something's going on in your house that you don't want on there, turn it off. It's not like addictive.
I love it when someone has their video on and their dog walks by, or their kids around the corner, or they're bouncing a baby on their lap. I just think for you guys especially, it has to help build those human connections.
Yeah, sure. And we encourage that, like, explicitly say, hey, someone interrupts you, great, like, have time for them, introduce them on the call if you're comfortable with that. People don't mind. And
I really like waving at the 3-year-old.
Yeah,
it's cute.
I find a puppy in the background makes the call go better.
Right.
Everybody's a lot nicer.
Yeah.
It puts you in a good mood.
I don't recommend getting a puppy as the first thing you do when you get a new remote job. It's not recommended.
That doesn't work out.
Well, it worked out, but it's hard.
Yes. You said you got Zoom rooms. We got one too, but I just wrote a big thing up that says hybrid calls are horrible. If there's a hybrid call where some people are together and other people are not, there's a problem for the remote participants. You cannot really hear the people that are at the room well. There's a lot of background noise, like the people in the room, they never mute their mic. You can't clearly see facial expressions because they might be sitting far away or out of the camera. You can't see who's talking because, like, normally, like, the face of the person pops up, but like it's the room. And you have a hard time getting a word in because you're slightly slower than the rest. So it's super hard to kind of get a word in if they're transferring between people at the table. And also the people sharing a camera, they can easily share their screen most of the times. They have trouble seeing details in screen sharing. They can't scroll to like a slide deck at their own pace. Like normally people present something, but they also have a link to the deck, so you have to go back and forth. And they cannot participate, like type or view a shared document that might with the notes and the questions. So we found that it was superior for people to like be on their own laptop in separate rooms. What do you think?
I think the difference is probably that when I'm using Zoom rooms, I'm using with other Zoom rooms. So I don't have 4 people from home and then a Zoom room with 6 people in it. That's a very unusual pattern for us. And I agree with everything you said, that I think that pattern is very hard because the people who are on their own laptops are second-class citizens in the meeting.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's a very difficult dynamic. But when we have 5 people sitting in a conference room in Israel and 10 people sitting in a conference room in Raleigh,
That makes sense.
then it works. Right, and that's normally the dynamic. It's unusual. You might have 1 or 2 remote, but it's actually really unusual to have a meeting where you have people in one office and then everybody else being individual.
Okay, we had that because we had a boardroom for our board meetings.
Right.
And then lots of people joined externally and they had a super bad experience.
And that's a very, very bad experience. But if we have Raleigh and Israel and San Francisco, which is our normal decade meeting on Tuesday mornings, and then we have 3 people come in individually, it actually seems okay, and I've done it. But having the different conference rooms, you have this awareness that it's a remote call. Because otherwise what happens is you forget there's remote people on the call. And that's tough. I also say, when you talked about the shared document, one of my favorite things to do when I meet with my team is if we're really trying to collaborate is not share a presentation and not share a document so we can see faces, and then have a shared Google Doc. So everybody's welcome to go add to the Google Doc. We work collaboratively on building notes and that recording function, whatever that's called in the meeting stuff. So we all have a shared space and shared whiteboard, but you're using the Zoom for the face-to-face and the eye contact and the communication.
Yeah, we like that too. And we're actually trying to discourage people from using like the chat function in Zoom or Slack and collaborate in that doc because it's easier to kind of build up a structure, go back in time, but also have an artifact after the meeting for people that want to watch the recording or want to know what was decided.
You get this wonderful self-recording of the meeting when you build that structure and when you build that, when you have that shared environment where, okay, everybody really just, well, here's the action items, everybody sees the action items, here's further discussion, how we got there, and people, I think it's a great dynamic that really makes the distributed meetings work better.
So we have a question from Miguel in China, who's asking about dealing with time zones. So, his comment is sync communication can slow decision-making, execution of task deployments. So I'm interested to hear how you guys deal with that with your Tel Aviv office in particular.
I'm a little lucky because Tel Aviv is 7 hours away from where I am, and so we don't have 12-hour time zone. And the nice thing about 7 hours is really hard, but you do overlap in the office 2 to 3 hours a day.
Right.
And most of Tel Aviv is an engineering office, and most of it falls under my org. And as soon as we did that acquisition and merger, a couple of us, a lot of the leaders said, all right, now I tend to get to work at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., I will not have a meeting outside of Israel. So if you want to have a meeting with me and there's no Israelis on it, you have to do it outside of those hours. And it doesn't matter if I have a blank in my schedule. If you come into the work at 8 o'clock and you see that I'm at my desk without a meeting, you cannot take that time. And it creates this dynamic where when people in Israel need attention from me or a few other people, they can get it at the last minute. So they don't have to get on my schedule 4 days ahead of time for that 1 2-hour block. That 2-hour block is set aside for cross-ocean communication. And that's really important to us. And I know other people have followed that. So we call them Israeli hours and we just reserve it. Now, it doesn't work when you have.
So do your California people not communicate with, or they don't need to, or?
Because it's an engineering office, I don't really have engineering in California.
Okay.
So I haven't had that issue yet.
Realm of 7 hours.
Right, so, and I'm putting an office in the UK, but that's in the middle, right? So I've joked that from 10 to 12 will be my UK hours. Right?
Yeah.
But that's one way we've dealt with it. And the other thing that's really hard about Israel, which you may not be aware of, is they don't work Fridays. So they work Sunday to Thursday.
Very aware of it. We have
folks there.
Yeah.
So, you talk.
I had a report in the past.
And talk about 7 hours ahead, but it's not 7 hours ahead. It is 31 hours ahead.
Oh,
because of that.
Yeah.
So you have 7 hours on the clock, but they are really over a day ahead of you. So when you get to work Monday morning, they've worked 2 days already. And when they go home Thursday, when you're hitting lunchtime, 11 or 12, they will not be back until Sunday.
Yeah.
So the amount of actual overlap you have for quality is really low. And when we're working on one product and we have to deploy one product and we can break their deploys and they can break our deploys, that sync issue is really big. We're trying to get better about it. It's something that we've really just started covering in the same code base in the last quarter or so. Before that, we were really much more separate. And I think
there's a product that'll help you with that, by the way.
There's the stuff you guys sell. It's continuous integration. It's the automated testing. It's the automated deployment and all those things that we thought we were good at. It turned out we weren't good enough at them. Right? And we're happy to get better at them. And the one thing we loved about the Israeli office we got into was they had a lot of strong tests, but they weren't good enough at it either, right? And so you don't notice all the places where there's manual processes in and time differences. The time zone puts big pressure on those processes. You have to automate them. They have to work. Because there's nothing worse than calling an engineer at 2 a.m. because you broke your phone. Right? You don't want to have to go there.
Makes sense. For us, it's the end of distance, but not the end of time zones. It's a big problem. I think one thing we're trying to do is at least when we're synchronous, make the most of it. So when you have a meeting that's synchronous, don't spend half of that time giving a presentation to everyone. It's a very recent change we're trying to do, still not happening, but I'm going to keep pushing because I think we can separate apart. Most meetings some meetings have the structure of like presentation and then Q&A. Okay, let's do the presentation up front, record it on YouTube. We can play it at 2x speed. And then let's use the very expensive synchronous time that everyone made available at the same time. Let's use that for Q&A with the Google Doc as a backup. So that's one thing.
Do you find the recorded presentations like that work better than just sending up the deck ahead of time? We haven't tried that, but it's an interesting idea.
We always have a deck ahead of time, and instead of sending it out, you can always find it to the calendar invite. So it has a fixed location. People can scroll through it to see whether they're going to attend. So we already have that. But some people like to also give a presentation. They're good at it, and it's enjoyable to watch. And people consume information differently. So for sure, do the deck. Make sure that the titles in the deck reflect the conclusions and not the subject matter, and all kinds of things. But I do think there's room for also just starting your webcam and just do the presentation you were inclined to give at the beginning of the meeting. Just record those 10 minutes.
That's an interesting idea. Maybe we're going to try that. So what was the most surprising thing you found in your company that's had the kind of success you've had?
Surprising things. One of the strange things was that self-managed is still very big. I expected everyone to start moving to SaaS, but in our business, there's a lot of people just still running their own software development infrastructure. Another surprising thing is that a single application is much better than multiple applications that are very closely integrated together. When someone in our company proposed to combine them, Dimitri said, no, that's not what the market does. I said, no, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you should have composable apps. But when we did it, it turns out there's a lot of advantages to having it integrated.
It was CI and source control. Those two.
Yeah, that was CI and source control at the time. One of the biggest problems is like handing over between the different applications and not having all the relevant information, not having all the relevant permissions, kind of slapping credentials around
and count at 5 different places.
Yeah.
And one database, one API, if you want to get metrics out of it.
So that's we didn't anticipate that would work that well.
Do you think the on-prem source code control and CI is going to continue, or do you think that's going to shift to the cloud? What do you see in your customers? Are they really that's just what they want?
Every year, I think it's like it feels like waiting for a year of Linux on the desktop. Like every year you think it's going to happen, it still hasn't happened. So I'm not sure. I want to make sure that we have great products for both things, and we invest a lot of time and money making sure GitLab.com is great. That's now the case, and now I'm relieved, and it can come now. We're ready, and we're paying our salespeople the same commission, we're charging the same price. It's very different about it.
So you got idea parity.
So Sid, I'm interested in your thoughts on this too, which is I've heard a couple of murmurings around hybrid use cases. So where you have something behind the firewall for part of it, but then maybe you send out jobs to the cloud version, or other sort of permutations of hybrid use cases where you're using the cloud for, processing power, offloading that, or you're using the cloud for storage, offloading something there, but you're still using the application behind the firewall. Have you heard those use cases, and what do you think of those use cases?
Yeah, so the product already supports having the CI and the CD workload externally.
Yep.
So whether you use self-managed or .com, you can already have that. The only thing we don't offer yet is purchasing it to us. So having the CI services, the CI build jobs as a SaaS. And I saw the issue for that yesterday. So we're adding that for customers and even for non-customers. So we'll get a new group of customers who's using GitLab, the free version, but they pay us for the compute.
Yeah.
Need to
How
How much of your internal infrastructure, even outside of your source code control and CI, is server-based? How much do you use as a business? Do you use SaaS solutions versus on-prem?
We tend to prefer SaaS solutions. Less management, so we use the marketing tools we use are SaaS.
I can't think of any server solution.
What do you use that's on-prem? Anything?
That's what I'm saying. I can't think of anything.
We have Chef to manage our infrastructure still.
Not very much.
Not very much. It's a few pieces in infrastructure, but that's about it. So like 90%.
And when were you founded?
2012.
So you're 2 years, year and a half, 2 years younger than, or older than we are.
So what do I?
Not a server.
Yeah.
Literally not a server. And we don't, not only do we not have a server, we don't have a server in the cloud.
So you use Google App Engine or?
We use App Engine completely. We're going to start using Kubernetes, so that will start to move for our product. But yes, outside the product, we don't run hosted. We don't run hosted source code. We don't run our own servers to do security. We don't run our own. You can put it on a server in Amazon. We still don't even do that. So everything in our business is a SaaS solution.
Yeah, I think it's the same for us.
And I think it's one of the big transitions between, this is my third startup. My last startup, I went out and we got funded with my credit card and I bought a bunch of Dell servers so we could run our own. We had to run a phone system and we had to go run build machines and we had to go put machines in cages, cages in a colo somewhere. And as I started before that with Red Hat, when we started, we scraped together money from under couches or something in order to buy servers, modems and things like that. And it's like, for me, that's the biggest difference in starting a business now than when I started the other ones. I mean, to the point that Pendo didn't have any employees until this year. Everybody, they're all employed by another company, and that company, but it was trying that for a while, and it was called JustWorks, which was excellent as well. And so it was all virtual, so it's like you could snap your fingers, and we had a company with healthcare benefits, and my wife actually tore her ACL when we were starting, and I could call on day one as an employee and say, hey, what do I do to get an insurance number? Like, I'll call Blue Cross for you and get it for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that, some of that rapid time to get a business that feels like a business, for me, feels just amazing how fast that's all changed.
You can actually focus on building your product too, rather than supporting phone systems.
Is JustWorks the employer of record or a co-employer?
They were employer of record. Well, my tax statement said JustWorks on it. So,
Okay.
I'm not too much into that side of things. But it was trying to, and then JustWorks.
Yeah.
But once we got to a certain scale where it made sense to bring it in-house again. I'm sure you guys are probably the same place.
Yep. Which is weird. Like, why would it not work at scale? But anyway, that's their business model.
That's what you go to the percentage, they take a percentage of salary, right?
Yeah.
And it's you have to ask them.
But they should just do discounts and make sure they keep.
They should. At some point, I think they would be better off doing that.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone, we're here at Google Next, which is the Google show. You can't tell because it's all out the window. But I've been looking at some of their offerings, and if you look at their computer offerings, like it makes sense to move to the less value add offerings as you get bigger, because the value add offerings have a certain amount of value. Maybe this was 2 engineers. Well, if it turns out that it's 2 engineers of value and you're charging me 4 engineers worth of cost, I'm going to go hire 2 engineers and we're going to move to the other one, because once I move, I get 2 engineers for free. Or 4 engineers for free, you're charging that much. And I think it's that same model as in these hiring companies, where they want to charge per employee, and some employees just have enough heads, like, it doesn't work anymore. You're driving me to lower cost solutions, more commoditized solutions, or in-house.
I'd love to see something that works around the world.
I would think that'd be really helpful for you guys.
This global works, there's a few. It's starting now, but it's far from strike for employment.
How do you manage to have 1 employee in the country? Do you pay as contractors?
Yeah.
They Red Hat did the same thing when they started to spread out with open source developers. Right?
Yeah, I think. And when you get more and more people, then you incorporate and put them on the payroll. And it doesn't make sense to incorporate for a single person.
What's the tilting point, or does it depend on the country?
Depends on the country. Depends on how much, like the law, the regulations and the enforcement there, but also you have a nexus there, like how much sales are you making? Are individual contributors, are directors, salespeople, or engineers? What sorts of things, and how many people, the whole factors.
So it keeps your CFO busy.
We work with an external company to do a risk assessment, and it's been great so far. But it's the only thing on our risk and compliance matrix where the likelihood of problems is certainty. But so far it's been really good.
So we're gonna have to wrap up here in a minute, but I have a question for you because you just talked about how everything's like virtual, everything, you have no servers. Do you ever think about open source anymore? I mean, you were a founder essentially of Red Hat. Do you ever think about that now in your like technology choices anymore?
Yes, no, I absolutely do. And if you look at our entire stack, it's all built in open source.
Yeah.
So we use Go as a language, that's open source. All the tools we build in are open source. We do have projects we contribute to, and we do open source. We did an open source MapReduce engine for App Engine, for instance. We open source to Go. And we contribute to projects in open source. So we still do it's still something we do. I don't know that we do it in a way that's unusual for any other company in the moment. Right. So a lot of these things were at the Red Hat days, you have to have a conversation. Oh, do we do open source? Or just like, of course we get that back. Right. And when you go through your VC due diligence, it's like, okay, so which open source projects do you use? Which ones do you give back to? Cool. Right. And that's just par for the course. It's just normal. What I don't do anymore, and this is a very personal thing because I was earlier Red Hat as an engineer, is I never think about an operating system.
Yeah.
I literally don't see that layer of the stack. And we'll move into Kubernetes and we'll use CoreOS and we'll slide in underneath our Docker stack. And we'll still never think about it. And when we want to upgrade, we'll press a button and the new one will go in and we'll reboot the server.
Yeah.
Right. So all of the time that I spent worrying about package managers and security updates and building operating systems and getting the pieces to fit together, which is how I built the first 7 or 8 years of my career, I literally never think about it. So that's a pretty interesting. That's a pretty interesting change. Like, and as a technologist, that's the biggest change for me. Like, it's just, I can't even imagine
the evolution of both cloud and open source sort of coming together.
Yeah, it's just everywhere, and like I can log into a server that we run our product on once a year because something weird happened. I want to see if I can investigate, and it's just we don't do it. And the guy who sits next to me built the kernel engineering team at Red Hat. Yeah, right. And he doesn't spend any time doing kernel engineering, doesn't think about it. We don't know what version of kernel's running. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's just, it really has changed how I look at my job and what layer, where I am. And the number of people who build operating systems now is so small because so many companies, frankly, Red Hat killed off so many companies in the Unix space. It just kind of collapsed down to just a couple.
Makes sense. And I think the same thing is going to happen to Kubernetes. Like, I don't think Kubernetes was made to like interface with it. It's another abstraction layer to build things on top of. So we hope that to get GitLab to state, we only have to interact with GitLab. You never have to dive a level below to Kubernetes.
Yeah, I would hope to never ever have to see it. And and I think Docker is like the new packaging system. Right? It's just, forget it. We don't need to move our packages anymore. We all have gigabit, and we'll just move away full layers and layer them together. And Snap is from just packaging system. Linux are just kind of cool to follow that same model. We're not going to worry about dependencies. We're just going to give you everything you could possibly need. We'll throw it on. You know what? Disks are cheap.
Yep.
So I'll tell you the last thing I'll say on it. I think it's interesting because I got involved in Linux very early. One of the reasons Linux came out in BSD way back was they had shared libraries. And at the time, people had 8 megs of RAM in a computer. And if you didn't have shared libraries, you needed a lot of RAM. So running BSD was really expensive. Linux did shared libraries. It could run on machines with a lot less RAM, and it took off. That's one of my pet theories for why Linux ended up becoming so popular. And now I deploy my app as a statically linked program, which is built with Go. It doesn't support shared libraries. It's just like this 10 megabyte or 50. I never even see the byte size, right? This behemoth application we just ship off to a server somewhere and it just does something.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware that BSD didn't have that.
It didn't have it for a long time. So it's like this huge first mover advantage for Linux in terms of RAM. You can run on new machines, which then brought people in to be developers. So you got device drivers. So it's just the whole thing accelerates and runs away.
And the same thing happened a bit with Ruby, although Ruby used a lot of memory, but you had to get to like one set of dependencies, one set of gems. If I'm not mistaken, in JavaScript, but then packages you can have multiple versions.
You can, but it might not work well, but it's very different.
Thank you.
You're
It was
welcome.
fun.
It was enjoyable.
Super cool.
Thanks for setting this up.
Thank you, everybody online for listening.
All right.
I think we're